We bought you a gallon.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to call this meeting to order. It's 5:03 on the 18th. We'll start with an invocation by Mr. Listen, followed by the pledge by Mr. Sumner.
Heavenly Father, we come to you today. We thank you for all the blessings you give to all of us. We thank you for this beautiful day, this beautiful weather that we're enjoying. Please look after our soldiers and first responders as they are out there keeping our community and our country safe. Please give us guidance that we might do everything in the best interest of the citizens and the residents of our county as we conduct our business this evening. And Lord, we pray that we find our loved ones in better shape than we left them when we return to our place in the boat. All this we ask in your name.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. We have a fairly light schedule tonight. And Mr. Seth gave us the afternoon off for the training session. So with that being said, why don't we go ahead and start with the Ramsey mini storage project.
Mr. Chairman, I think we might need to approve the minutes of the agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. You're right. I would entertain a motion to approve the...
I have some corrections.
You have some corrections?
I wouldn't be disappointed in you.
I don't want to disappoint. Page 11, the paragraph immediately after the red, the second sentence, building, comma, by Mr. Belcher, comma, is may not be. I think there's a little grammatics that needs to be corrected. Kathy, tell me if I'm going too fast. Page 12, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th paragraph down, second to the last sentence at the end, it says their job is to reduce the amount of stormwater measured in. I think it's supposed to be just in. I know I'm anal. Page 18, the last paragraph, second to the last sentence, says White House increased by 17.9%. Shackle Island, the word decrease should be increased. Page 20, 7th paragraph down. Mr. Belcher noted that in the stormwater information that it seeps. I think it should have been speaks, S-P-E-A-K-S. Page 24, fourth paragraph down. Last sentence, the word political, I think should be politicians, perhaps.
Where was that again?
Fourth paragraph down on page 24, last sentence, the word political, I think should be politicians.
No, sir, that should be political.
It is political?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We can just change it.
That's all I have.
All right. And with those changes, are there any other changes? With those changes, I entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a
Oh,
motion.
motion. Second from Mr. Stroll. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, and the agenda. So moved by Commissioner Miller. And second by Ron Belcher. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. We still have a quorum tonight, even though there's one person missing and one spot has not been filled. So, now we can move on to item number 1, Ramsey Mill Storage.
And Mr. Chairman, I presume we'll be doing a public hearing on each item.
Yes, yeah, I'm sorry, I should have pointed that out.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item on the agenda this evening is Ramsey 109 mini storage PUD rezoning and concept plan. The Planning Commission may remember this when it came through a couple of years ago. This particular item is located just north of the city limits of the city of Gallatin on 2.61 acres. It's currently zoned rural residential, which means it's in the Gallatin planning region. I'm sorry, the Gallatin urban growth boundary. And they're requesting to rezone the parcel to planned unit development at this time. The proposed use is restricted to mini storage. Adjoining property owners were notified by certified mail. It was advertised in the Gallatin News Hendersonville Standard on March 6, 2025. And I didn't mention the project is represented by Green Lid Design. Mr. Andy Leith is in attendance here this evening, as is the property owner. I do have a note on here. This item, I mentioned you've seen it before. There was a rezoning request that was submitted for this item back in 2022, and it was denied by the County Commission in 2022. Our regulations for planning developments do allow reapplication for a denied application 1 year after the date of the final application. And so it's been longer than a year now. It's 2025, and so they are entitled to resubmit. Which was they have done. This is the current zoning, and I'll get into a little bit more about the context on this one. But as you can see, it does have a plan unit development zoning to the north and to the south. In the middle here is one parcel that's zoned rural residential. It's undeveloped at this time, as is as are the parcels to the north and south, are substantially undeveloped. As far as public notice on this one, it is a planning and development request. A neighborhood meeting is required, which they had back in January. They placed rezoning notification signage along the road, and certified letters were sent to adjoining property owners related to this public hearing. And we did, as I mentioned, advertise it in the Hendersonville Standard Gallatin on March 6th, which is about 12 days prior to today. So we're required to be in the paper 10 days prior for planning commission hearings. So that requirement is met. This is that newspaper notice for this item. This is that public hearing or a public meeting that the developer is required to have. Greenland had that meeting at their office. This is the notice. And so they had the meeting on January 22nd and provided a summary of it. I was in attendance at that meeting, and we have one person, the person who owns the property to the north and the south, was in attendance, just with questions about what was proposed.
Is it the same person that owns both properties?
Yes, sir. So to kind of put this in context of where it is, as I mentioned, it's Gallatin is to the south down here. For the most part, this is a development called the Meadows that was approved by the city a number of years ago. It was annexed into the city. Separates, there's the CSX Railroad tracks separate all this from that property. So at this time, there's really not any connectivity between any of this, where this is in the city. This piece of property here is the Highway 109 planning and development that was approved back in 2017. There's not been a lot of forward momentum on that for the most part. There is some down here that's been approved. That there's a construction sales and services business down there operating now. They got a site plan that's been approved and the whole thing. It's a scope of roofing operates down there. But there's a number I'll show you the plan sheet here in a minute. Down here, the gravel company PED, which is the landscape supply company that got approved by the county a couple years ago, is operating down here. There's a mini storage facility here. There's other non-residential uses as well. This here is included in that Highway 109 PED, same thing, same owned by the same building. That was this over here. And this over here is Scott Parker PED, an RV storage place that was approved by the county a couple years ago. So the point of that being, it's surrounded by a lot of non-residential uses, and you got one isolated parcel here in the middle that's rural residential. This is that plan that was approved for this Highway 109 PUD. So there's quite a few non-residential commercial type buildings, highway services type stuff. There's all kinds of different uses that's proposed with this, but again, not a lot of movement has occurred, except not a lot of movement in the southern part of it, but this particular parcel here with the star on it was under different ownership, and so it was a part of that rezoning that was done. And so this is the overall site layout. You always see the link. So this is one of the sheets for the planning development here. This is Highway 109. Along this side, railroad tracks is over here. And as you see, there are 4 main storage buildings that are proposed. So this is the site layout. This is a conceptual grading plan. The applicant's engineer is here this evening to talk about proposed grading and that kind of thing. Landscaping as it is limited to the frontage along Highway 109. We wouldn't be requiring landscape buffers or anything along commercially zoned property to the north and south, nor would we require a buffer between it and the railroad tracks. They did provide a photometric lighting plan showing just in general what lighting would be. For the site plan, there would be more details that would require fixtures and that kind of stuff, but for the stage, it's adequate. And they did provide architectural elevations that meet our requirements. This partially blended brick, you see the brick here that's around the perimeter of the buildings. And so this is basically identical to what was turned in a couple of years ago. Our comprehensive plan, this is a situation here, but where although this is on 109, it actually, which doesn't, that right of way doesn't really exist on our comprehensive plan, but this particular area was envisioned as a commercial node. I guess you might say north of town. It's highway services is what it's classified as. So a little bit closer to you. See the cemetery up here. And so this is where it is. And so this kind of a use is compliant with that character area. A little bit hard to read up there, but predominantly low density commercial uses served by automobile is what's proposed here. Big storage would be one of those. So this does comply with our comprehensive plan. As far as drainage, grading plan's been submitted. It's just conceptual. We would require a construction plan phase, the site plan phase, detailed construction plans, the erosion dimension, set of control plans. There would be no coverage with T-deck and the whole thing for drainage and drainage calculations and all that when the site plan's submitted. They did provide a trip generation report. Let us know what the total trips per day would be. We had a little bit of applicable stuff that's on code. So that's a question we deal with a lot that you guys have asked. I've never really written down a good answer for you, and I apologize for that. So our zoning code, chapter 11, section 101, does clarify when a traffic study is required, and there are three real criteria for when one is required. One is if it generates more than 100 peak hour trips per day. So this will generate 9 peak hour trips per day, so it's nowhere near the 100. B, if it will result in a more intensive use that exceeds 100 peak hour trips, then again, not applicable. It's not going to generate 100 peak hour trips. And C, if myself or the county engineer has a specific concern about the roadway, intersection, site access, or other safety issues. We don't have any concern necessarily with this use, but I think I do have a slide that talks about here. The one concern that we do have that would have to be addressed at the site plan stage is the immediate crossover at this location. And so if this is a major arterial roadway that we're going to be connecting onto, title to at least one or more, depending on whatever they want to tell you, drive access. So this lot has the right to have one drive access on the state highway. But there's no immediate crossover. So what that means is if you're coming up from Gallatin, of course you can make the right-hand turn, but if you're coming down from Portland, you'll have to make a U-turn to get up to it. And when you're leaving the site, if you want to go back down to Gallatin, you have to come up here and make a U-turn to go back down. And so they have that on their plans, though they do show immediate crossover, but we don't know whether TDOT would approve that. I've spoken to some of Mr. Lee about that, but that's something definitely that TDOT would have to approve. In order, and it is relatively close to this other immediate crossover right here. So it'd be up to TDOT whether they would approve that or require this to be removed or what. I don't know if Mr. Lee has had any more conversations with TDOT on that. But we do have a condition of approval added to require that the applicant must obtain approval from TDOT to construct this immediate crossover to certain use. The staff went out and took some pictures just to kind of show you where this is. There's the sign, very, very large driveway here, but we put it where we had to put it where it was visible. As you drive by, this gives you an idea of what you see there. That's the Scotty Parker mini storage. There's some discussion about that one recently, but you see that across the way there. So our zoning code has 9 zoning map amendment standards, and so the planning commission needs to take these into account when making a recommendation. The first is this compatible with the comprehensive plan? Is it consistent with it? It is. 2, are there change conditions that require amendment? So the zone change was envisioned by the 2035 plan. This is another one of those things where probably would have been appropriate to go ahead and just zone this area into a commercial zoning designation to make it plan compliant. But that wasn't done, so there's been more of a piecemeal approach as folks come in to rezone the property. 3, does it address a community need? So it's a free market issue there. That indicates that there is a need for this kind of service in the area. 4, is it compatible with the area and the land uses that surround it? The comp plan does indicate it is compatible. And again, as I mentioned, there are a number of non-residential uses right in the vicinity. 5, is it a logical, orderly development pattern? And it is along a state highway, commercial zoning is all around it. 6, I believe it encourages development prior to the availability of necessary services. So on something like this, road service is really the defining factor. Sewer and that kind of stuff don't really play a role in this kind of use. And so it does appear that obviously road infrastructure is available. Water is available for the city that will have to irrigate any planting that they do and that kind of thing. And so services are available. Would it result in the creation, number 7, of an isolated zoning district unrelated to adjacent and surrounding zoning districts? And no, it would not. It would be fit right in with those other zoning designations around it. Would it result in adverse impacts to the community? We have not received any appraisal or testimony stating that it would. And 9, would it result in adverse impacts to the environment, including water, air, noise, stormwater, wildlife, vegetation, etc. And we don't anticipate any such impacts. We do have a lighting plan on the stormwater. It's shown as addressed on the site. That will have to be done in more detail on the site plan. One thing I didn't mention related to the site itself and what they're proposing to do. So as I mentioned, this site does sit in the middle of what we have proposed through here. So you have a parking lot here and another parking lot here. And so they do have, on their plan here, they do have a cross access that's proposed to connect to parcels. Yes, to the north and the south, yes. And so they do that. That is different from the first plan. They had the north and south connection. So next steps on this one, what the planning commission is that being asked to do is to make a recommendation to the county commission on this item. After the planning commission's recommendation, it'll go to legislative a few times and then to the full commission for a vote. And the county commission can send it back if they need more information. That kind of thing. If it's approved by the county commission, then the rezoning will become effective immediately. And then we'll need to file a site plan with the planning commission in order to actually build the buildings. As proposed, and do the site work as proposed. And so, Mr. Chairman, there are motions, example motions on the screen. One being for a positive recommendation with a couple of contingencies. One being site plan approval, as I mentioned, is required. And two, after you must obtain approval from TDOT to construct that median. And so what we would do is in the resolution that goes to the county commission, we would ensure that there's, in the whereas clauses, there would be that states that those are conditions that this would be approved under. So at any rate, that's the positive recommendation. Two is the negative recommendation on this item to the county commission. And three would be to defer it to get additional information. And that concludes my presentation. Mr. Lee is here to proceed.
Do we have any speakers?
No, sir. Nobody's on that.
All right. Questions? Commissioner Miller.
I just have a question for Josh. When was this denied in 20, what month?
Let's see, I've got it again here. One second. November the 14th. I think it was the first rezoning when the new commission came on board. I think it was the first rezoning that the commission had seen. The commission.
Belcher.
Yes, I do have some questions. Do we have, I'm sure we have record of it. Do anybody recall what the reason for the denial was?
I have to defer to the county commissioners in the room that even, I think it was received a positive recommendation from the planning commission previously, but I'm not always speak for the county commission on their rationale was.
I don't remember what the rationale was, but because I recall, I was brand new on the planning commission, and I thought I got a positive approval from us,
From the planning commission.
from the planning commission, but it was denied.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything about that.
I wasn't on the planning commission.
No, but it had to go before the commission.
Correct.
And I don't remember why it got denied.
And the prior, the one that was denied was mini storage also, same.
It was basically almost exactly the same plan that's before the planning commission this evening, except for it didn't have a north-south connection. I think they just stuck it to the north. This time they're showing a north-south connection all the way through. There may be a couple other very minor tweaks, but substantially it's just what went before.
And with regard to the mini storage, it's restricted just to mini storage, correct?
That's right. Yeah, the table of uses only allows big storage. Yes, sir. So what that means is if somebody wants to come in and do construction sales and services, so like an AC repair guy and then open a shop there, what that would require is you'd have to do a major plan amendment. And so that would mean that it would come back to the plan, it would go back for a neighborhood meeting, back to the planning commission. You guys would see again, make a new recommendation, and it would go back to the county commission to change the table of use. But if they wanted to like change the building locations, make things a little smaller, that kind of stuff, that's a minor change that we can approve at the staff level, basically. So if they were making it less intensive, then we can approve that. But if they want to change the table of uses, that's a major change, and that's go back to the process.
Let's see. Does anybody recall why the 2017 approval of the 109 interchange PUD didn't include this parcel other than it being owned by somebody else?
This was just owned by somebody else at the time, and I don't think that the current owner even owned it then. I think it was somebody else entirely. I'd have to defer to Mr. Leaf and Mr. Ramsey, they may have more history.
Let's see. what is for the approved interchange PUD, what are some of the approved uses for the area to the north and the area to the south?
I'd have to go back and look, but it's everything from it's more, the reason that it's not much has been done with it, so you have things like construction, sales and services, those kinds of business, businesses where you have workers coming in and that kind of stuff. You have everything from that to big box retail even, and that kind of stuff up there. So the way that it was done back then, it was under a totally different zoning code, and so things weren't quite spelled out as neatly as they would be today, but it's just pretty much a wide open kind of PUD for any kind of a commercial use that you can imagine. I'm trying to think, there may even be like a bus station in there or something like that. I mean, it is a very, very ambitious project, and so it hasn't happened. And part of the reason it hasn't happened is because sewer service is not available up there. And so, sewer service, though, is available across the railroad tracks at the Meadows development, so that would just require a permit from the railroad or a sewer line of the railroad to get sewer service to it at some point. So at some point, something's going to happen on that property. I don't know when it's going to be, but at some point, something's going to happen.
Okay, that explains a lot.
Usually with the railroads, it's an act of Congress.
It can be done. It can be done. But yeah, it would take a while for whoever it is to get that permit to board or railroad tracks. It's got to be done to their specifications, and probably their contractor would have to do it or something like that.
Yeah, we've had to meet that before in my work, and it's pretty laborious. Because there's some existing crossovers that go on 109, and this one is not at 1, I guess I'm not real sure how to word the question, but would there be a requirement for, since there's not a crossover, that TDOT would basically say, use one of the existing ones because they're there, period? And would there be a way for this property to access that, obviously crossing over adjoining property to do it?
In order to utilize the existing crossovers over there for U-turns and that kind of stuff, that they would just be able to do that. But the county, I think, has, and TDOT will definitely heed what the county wants on something like this. If the county demands, as part of the site plan approval, immediate crossover there, TDOT will go with us on that, basically. Now, I think we'd have to ensure that the county commission has that, I say as a condition of approval, so something doesn't slip through the cracks there. Mr. Leaf may have had some additional conversations with TDOT at this time, I'm not sure. But whether they would allow that crossover to be installed as close as it is to the one to the south, I don't know. But what they may say is, yeah, we'll let you do that, but you're going to build it at your expense, and then you're going to take the other one out. We're going to remove that other one. And that's something that's feasible that they might require, but I don't know for sure what they would require.
And that segues into my next question. Since that is a condition of approval, if we give it a positive recommendation, it goes through the process and gets approved, and they're not able to do that, is it still a PUD, or does it go back to rural residential?
Right. The rezoning, it would be rezoning, and so it would just be incumbent upon them to be able to get it done in order to actually move forward with the site plan in order to get it done.
So they'd have to basically wait on development north and south of them to connect to that
Right.
in order to do something.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Also, there's some, and I don't know what to call them, there's some access stub outs already existing along 109. And I know that there's a requirement when, at least from my memory, requirement when 109 was done that the connections could be no closer than 1,300 feet apart. The existing ones are much closer than 1,300 feet to this property. So you mentioned that this property has the right to do a connection.
But, and so it's not quite accurate. So what the zoning code requires, we have access controls. The existing accesses for each lot are essentially a property entitlement. And so TDOT, when they built 109, they could have bought the access from folks like they did on the interstate. So they buy your access, they pay for money basically. They didn't do that. Each lot continued to have at least one access onto the state highway. We've got additional access controls in our zoning code that says new roadways. So new roadways, so like a new subdivision that was going to connect to it, right? New roadways have a 1,400-foot spacing, and then signals have I forget what the signal is off the top of my head right now, but there's a greater, like a mile between signals or something like that. Yeah. And so they would be able to utilize, everybody on the road has the right to utilize that one drive connection, in at least some way.
Okay. I do have some questions on the drawings too. I noticed that the drawings still show starting construction in December of 22 and finishing in September of 23. So that would obviously need to be corrected. There was mention that there was a deviation to the required 65-foot setback, but I didn't see what that deviation was.
I don't know that they have called out exactly how far the buildings are from the front property line on there. That'll be shown on the site plan.
I was just curious because it mentioned there was a deviation, but I find it strange that they didn't mention what the reason was. On drawing S1, there's a survey seal with no signature or date. So I'm curious as to why the surveyor didn't sign and seal his work, if you know. That seal, there's no date and no signature.
See what you're saying?
I realize this is, I guess, somewhat preliminary from a construction standpoint, but there really shouldn't be a seal on there without a signature and date, or it should have a signature and date. Also noticed that there's stormwater areas at the front and rear of the property on the east and west side, I guess. But there wasn't any description with regard to what that included. And then on a landscaping drawing, it shows landscaping in the front area. So I'm a little confused as to, is it a stormwater area or is it not? Not that there can't be landscaping in a portion of it, I guess. Is that going to be an active stormwater control area?
I mean, they don't make that determination for the construction plans or drawings. Yeah. It's just conceptual.
One of the requirements of the highway services designation, I noticed, is a sidewalk. Is there going to be a sidewalk included?
The access controls that we have for Highway 109 actually stipulate along 109 that we don't want to see sidewalks. And that's in the zoning code. And so, and then basically that's, and now interior to the site, there would be, I feel like For some reason, they actually drew in sidewalks on this. Yeah. And so within the context of a PUD though, where you've got this kind of internal connectivity, you might want to see it actually. And so they actually do have a sidewalk on there. Now like I said, the zoning code in general is kind of discourages sidewalks along a major state arterial where you're doing north south interior to a PUD though, it does make a lot more sense. And this would, like, especially if in the event was proposed and this overall PUD actually came to fruition, you would want to have a way for people potentially to be able to walk from point A to point B across this. So that makes sense.
Also, I mean, and this is a curiosity question, Josh, maybe you can answer. One of the county amendment standards lists that there needs to be a need for whatever's planned to be built there. What type of, if any, backup information is provided to substantiate the need on this or any other project where that's a requirement?
There's a number of things you can do. To some extent, we defer to the market forces that are out there, and I'll put that on the applicant to make that justification to you guys about why they feel like it's necessary. But, things like a market analysis for commercial projects and that kind of thing is not unheard of, and I think our zoning code may actually envision that as a possibility if that's something that you wanted. Like if somebody was proposing to do this today, this overall PUD right here,
Yeah.
I think we would probably want to see some kind of a feasibility analysis on it, to show, how without sewer service available, how do they intend to make that work,
Yeah.
and the proposed uses and that kind of thing. Now, mini storage and that kind of thing, that's something that I'm sure Mr. Ramsey or Mr. Lee can speak to, the market forces that they're seeing that people want this kind of
Is
thing.
there data that says that the existing ones, all of them are 95% full
Exactly.
all the time?
Exactly.
Things of that nature.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
Also, I saw mention of a potential TVA transmission line through this area. Do we know where that, not that it's gonna go, but if it were to go, generally where that's gonna go?
No, sir, I'm not seeing anything wrong. I'm aware dimly that TVA is looking at some kind of a route for a transmission line that goes through here somehow or another. I think they may have sent some letters or something expressing interest, but I don't know that I don't even know that TVA has a route nailed down on where they're gonna do it at this time. And I may be wrong about that, may have evolved, but last I heard, that was kind of status.
The only additional comment I would have is that based on some prior meetings that we had, and I don't know that this applies here, whether or not we would want to put any sort of time requirement on construction, so that if something didn't happen within that time frame, they would have to come back to us to get reapproved, something of that nature, just so that we can start that process and not end up in messes that we've had to do.
Yes, and our zoning code actually does spell that out now for PUDs that come through, that they have a certain number of years, I think it's 3 years, something like that. There's some stipulations in there. Yeah, they need to have a site plan file for non-residential, or a plat file, those kinds of things, or it can lapse. Now, it doesn't automatically go rezone itself back. What that does is it gives the county the right, if the PUD is set there for a long time, to pick it up and have a public hearing on it, invite the property owner to explain what's going on, and potentially to rezone it back. And so one of the other terms on there is one of the comments you had, they're all very good. One of them is, that first one I think was a really good one, good catch about the timeline for construction. And so sometimes folks put that on there just as a, whatever, eventually, they put a date on there. But our zoning code actually does require that if they fail to meet the deadlines, the timelines established on the PUD, that's grounds to revoke it and to rezone the property. back to its original designation if they fail to meet the timelines that they put on there. So we do try to encourage folks to think about what the actual timeline on these things are, and to put something realistic out there. So odds are, this is getting approved right now, they're not going to go to construction this summer, right?
Yeah.
We're just getting permits from TDEC, you got to do all kinds of other things. And so put something on there that's realistic. So our design code does a visual on that.
Okay. I'm done.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. I have a few questions. Mr. Leaf, welcome.
Good to hear.
I recall that one of the concerns about the transmission line was possibly running along the southern border of this property. Do you know anything about that?
So Mr. Ramsey, he owns the property, he's in attendance tonight, and he and I did speak about this before the meeting. He has received communication from TVA as of yesterday, last week, sometime in the very few days ago, that they intend to approach it, but it could be a year from now.
Okay. Yeah, I remember another, it seemed to me it was a housing development that they were very concerned about that transmission line running down Douglas Road and that. I remember it being there. Do you recall why it was denied in the past? I don't.
I mean, I have my personal opinions about it, because I was representing the project.
Right.
You know, the commission at the time, 18 of 24 seats flipped.
Yeah,
If I'm not mistaken, this may have been y'all's first meeting
might have been.
as a new county commission, and it had a rezone project on it. And I don't know of any rezone project in the county right now that doesn't get controversial. So, my personal opinion, the commission had bigger fish to fry, so it was just voted down.
Yeah, and usually we don't give a reason. I mean, there's lots of questions, sometimes asked, sometimes there's not any asked.
I do recall that during the discussion that there wasn't anybody at the county commission meeting who came out in opposition to the project. And I remember Mr. Sullivan, who represents that area, kind of making the point that as it seemed to be going down, that nobody had spoken in opposition. There was nobody there that was opposed to the project in any way.
Mm-hmm.
And so it wasn't something that was okay when it was before the planning commission, and then the neighborhood kind of got agitated about it. So, yeah, we'd have to look at the minutes and the recording to see, but I don't recall a whole lot of like neighborhood controversy about this project.
Yeah, I don't remember any.
No, and I wouldn't expect that, because you've got commercial pub to the north, commercial pub to the south, and commercial uses across the street, and the railroad behind you. I honestly just think the timing was terrible on when it was in front of the county commission. Because I don't even think, Josh, that the legislative committee was one legislative committee that heard it twice, and then the new county commission voted on it.
Maybe.
I think I don't even think that the elected commissioners went through the legislative process with it.
Well, we would have had our first meeting in September, and then October, this was denied in November.
So then maybe
So it would have been our third meeting. The couple other things. I'm assuming the easy thing to do is the mini storage, because there's no sewer required.
That is one reason, but also the owner, Mr. Ramsey, he's got, how many units do you know? He's got about 500 mini storage units, so it's what he does.
Okay.
And to speak to the market analysis, I mean, someone that owns 500 units and wants to build more, obviously, there's a need for it in the community.
Yeah. I'm just trying to come up with job creation in the counties.
Well, and this site will be difficult in the near future for that, because it does lack sewer. And the small nature of the site would make septic, and if you pull the topo back up, the topography of the site, it's going to make septic not reasonable. It's got a couple of draws in it that obviously we don't have to protect the septic field, we'll just fill those in and flatten it out. But you're right, it's not going to be a job creator, but it does utilize this property to generate.
Sure, and I appreciate that. The geology, is it fairly rocky, or?
I can't speak to whether it's rock or not, but typically in Sumner County, at least east of 31W, we hit rock at about 4 feet.
Yeah.
So it's probably does have that.
And my last question, I think, is I know that recently we've talked about what the original purpose of 109 was to not have, to make it basically an arterial way between Gallatin and Portland. And there was some feeling that there shouldn't be, driveways onto 109. I don't think that's probably reasonable, but is that the truth about 109 is that it was meant to be the, quick artery up to Portland from Gallatin and back.
Well, it was, TDOT doesn't ever build a road for one purpose. And so they're number one, that what they'll tell you, having worked there, is that the purpose they build roads is to move commerce and to move people and goods.
Mm-hmm.
And so on this particular project, and I've got a slide, it's actually in the next agenda item, but I'll bring it up now if I can find it. Here it is. And so State Route 109, and I should have put this slide in the first one as well, but it's not a controlled access roadway. This PUD as well as the next item we'll be discussing incorporates all those county and TDOT standards related to access. And so there is no policy or plan that exists that tries to exclude development of a network.
Okay.
Doesn't exist today, and that wasn't the intent. And so this is an old, you can tell by the language, it's still on TDOT's website. It references a committee that first met in 2013. It still references Anthony Holt's name on there, but he's the chairman of that committee. But what it says is the State Route 109 Corridor Management Agreement, which is that agreement we've discussed in previous meetings. It involves a partnership among 5 jurisdictions, so that's in Sumner County and Wilson County. Under this agreement, all parties would promote safe and efficient operation, enhance and sustain economic development, and support environmental conservation along the corridor. And so if you look at the corridor management goals for State Route 109 per TDOT, 1, improve regional transportation for local residents, commuters, and freight. 2, promote economic development. And 3, preserve community character. And so, uses that are appropriate and that don't fly in the face of good access management controls and that kind of stuff, make things unsafe. They're compatible with the corridor and its intent.
Yeah, and there is a signalized intersection just south of that, so I'm assuming that the traffic is going to be slow. I'm just concerned about if they don't get the crossover and that. They got a hunch they won't.
Well, and I'll speak to that when you're.
Yeah, go ahead and speak to it.
Well, so I've worked on the Meadows project, and so I've had lots of conversations with TDOT about this area. And I think one of the comments from Josh's office was, and forgive me if I get it wrong, was to show a median or how are you going to get to the other side. So my staff put in a median cut. And we have a meeting scheduled with TDOT, I think, next week. Stanley and some of those guys were on spring break vacation. So we do have a meeting scheduled. I agree with you. I don't think they're going to allow us a meeting cut. So I would like to discuss that tonight about this and what Mr. Belcher brought up about if we can't get it, that it doesn't impact this rezoning request because we feel like that it's not going to hurt us if TDOT regulates us to a right in, right out. We're a very low traffic generator. Mm-hmm. You're not just driving down the street and want to whip in the mini storage. It's an intentional, I'm going to my mini storage unit. And so if it's inconvenient for people, find another place to store your goods. So we're okay with a right in, right out. And so I would make the request of this body that in that motion example, that we just change it to get a TDOT permit. Regardless of what we do, we are going to have to go back to TDOT. We're not guaranteed that to use that driveway cut for a commercial purpose. So we will have to obtain a TDOT commercial driveway permit. Right now, it's just for what is currently zoned, which is residential usage. So we have to go back to TDOT regardless. And the timing of going back to TDOT is not until this body will approve a site plan, because they're not going to give us a driveway permit without you guys approving the site plan. Mm-hmm. And we can't get to that stage until we get through rezoning. So it's sort of the chicken and the egg, but we can't come back with an opinion from TDOT that says they're not going to be 100%, but they can say looks like you're on the right pathway to getting the right in, right out.
Yeah. Ultimately, that almost frontage road that you've designed into the front of your site, I can see that being used.
Well, and then in the future, if these properties, and these other properties are not going to develop until sewer gets there.
Right.
I will also speak to the sewer. It is, I think it was mentioned that it's in the meadows. Sort of is in the meadows, sort of is not. Sewer is located on a portion of the property that the meadows owns, but it is a long way away from this corner right here, and we're talking about years if it even gets done. People have been trying to develop the meadows since we got it entitled back in maybe 19. There's too many challenges with it. So I don't foresee sewer being here from the meadows anytime soon. And if sewer does get to these properties, it's liable to come from a different direction besides the meadows. So again, that's another reason we're making this request for mini storage. We think sewer's going to be a long time coming.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Okay, those are all my questions. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one other question I missed. This is for Josh. The presentation mentions that a traffic study is not required based on the number of trips, but you also included in the documentation on February 24 memo where you stated you are going to require it. I'm just curious for your reasoning.
February 2024.
February 24th of this year.
Was that the staff comments you're talking about?
No, it was a memo from you to, I think, Mr. Lee, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I think you got to. Yeah. I would recommend folks, just if you have a comment or something that you see, you could talk to me about it ahead of time, ahead of the meeting. You know, it's immensely beneficial so that I have an idea of what you're talking about. Yeah, but I mean, I don't recall saying that a traffic study would be required. They will have to work with TDOT, obviously, on the median access or whatever it is that TDOT is approved.
My biggest concern is somebody pulling a 30-foot fifth wheel and trying to do a U-turn on 109. But we can't control that. That's beyond our jurisdiction. So we have to leave that up to the pros of TDOT, I think.
Also, Mr. Chairman, my concerns is because of 109 being dubbed an arterial roadway, someone might not expect somebody to be slowing down to turn into, a drive onto the property. And I don't know whether that would warrant, even though the numbers don't warrant a turning lane or not, into the property. But, it's somewhat of a safety concern.
Yeah, and I think it is, but I think you'll have that with all of that property on that side ultimately, and anticipate that 109 is going to be a whole lot busier in 20 years if sewer comes through, or step system, or whatever we end up doing here for sewage. It's just going to be a different highway at that point. So, okay. Well, Commissioner.
Question, not going to be the same. I mean, can you hear me?
No, I can't.
Is that better? My comment would just be the same concerns of the traffic. Those miles, and it's about less. So people don't have to go through Nashville. And those trucks walk, if it's 18-wheelers, they don't do, I think the speed limit's like 50 or 55, and they're not doing that. I had to actually move on the shoulder of the road before if I was turning, to avoid getting rear-ended. That's my main concern with this as well. And if TDOT's not going to, do a median crossover, I think it's actually illegal to make a U-turn on Highway 109. So I think not a judge or a law enforcement officer. Pretty sure.
Can you speak to that, Mr. Lee?
Well, Josh is very familiar with TDOT. I don't think they would allow us to just build turn lanes if there's not a warrant for it. And I'm not a traffic engineer, but I've been working on these projects for well over 20 years. This is probably the least intense use we could have, or at least traffic generator we could have. Almost, if we put single-family homes there, we'll probably have, single family with 3 or 4 kids, it's going to have more trips generated than this site will. So I'm on 109 all the time myself, and during rush hour trying to go to Portland, this road's right, there's a lot of traffic on the road. But we do feel like the use we're requesting allows this property to be utilized, allows it to generate some economic return, and at the same time put as little traffic on the road as any other commercial use would do.
Okay, anything else?
I think, Chairman, everything's been addressed. It's, Mr. Belcher's comment here that I wrote down. The landscaping in the front and the stormwater, what that is sort of envisioned to be is a bioretention area. So it would duplicate treating stormwater runoff according to the county's requirements. And bioretention has pretty intense landscaping requirements. So it will double as a landscaped area plus stormwater, being a bioretention site. So that was why it's both. The setback deviation, I think in the county's regulation, Josh, you correct me, if this was a straight zone project, there's some conditional use stuff about a 65-foot setback from the property. So I'm just trying to detail that we're deviating from what the county's requirement would be if it was a straight zone project. But since this is a PUD, we just wanted to highlight we're not strictly following the county zoning if it was straight zone. Just wanted to bring that out. So in the PUD, we're setting the zone setbacks with the PUD. So just wanted to point out to you guys that we are deviating from what the county would require had it been straight zone. But what we're proposing here is the setbacks we're asking for.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead.
So my overall thoughts, I'm not concerned really with the rezoning issue. You have the PUD above it, PUD below it. I mean, that's okay. It's reasonable use of the land, things like that. I'm okay with going in favor to move this forward to commission, but I do want to leave in the T-dot crossover. In my opinion, I feel like that's the bigger issue. Traffic, I mean, when we put our brake lights on there, we don't stop when the person in front of you slows, the traffic's slow. I mean, that just happens on any road anywhere. The deer could run out anywhere, and we're responsible to stop our vehicle, being in control of our vehicle. So that part, not so much. But if somebody's pulling out, who knows what they're going to be thinking when they pull out. Now they're crossing 2 lanes of traffic to move up to the next one, pulling a U-turn. I don't know again if that's legal or not legal on that road. And then cutting across other lanes of traffic to go the other direction. I kind of have some concerns about that. So I'm okay with the motion to move forward with number 1, but with A and B included.
With what?
With A and B included.
Okay.
So that's my motion.
That's your motion. We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have 2 seconds. We'll take Mr. Strauss second. Okay, go ahead, Kathy.
Commissioner Miller? No. Mr. Issa?
Yes.
Mr. Belcher?
Yes.
And Mr. Straw?
Yes.
All right, we have a positive recommendation to the legislative who will do 2 readings.
Yes, that's correct.
And they can't bypass on the second reading with unanimous, or can they?
No, I believe the county commission's rules, stipulate that has to go 2 times.
2 times.
There's a special thing for zoning related items.
Okay. And so, thank you, gentlemen. All right, item number 2.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next item on the agenda is Lewis Head Commercial Plaza, 135 West Roberts Road site plan. This piece of property, we saw it last month. It was deferred at the last planning commission meeting in February in order to obtain more information on a few items. One being a water availability letter that was provided in the packet, septic permit, and this I didn't update this, but we do have that septic permit based on what I put here. The application was submitted to TDEC, had an inspection scheduled. TDEC went ahead and sent me that septic permit on Friday last week, and so we do have that in the staff presentation here. And then third, so the landscape buffer discussion related to the we've had some discussions with the applicant's representatives on that, and then with the planning commissioners as well. And so if that item needs more discussion, so that we do that. This piece of property is located at the intersection of State Route 109 and West Roberts Road, 5.05 acre parcel zone PUD. To remind everybody, this was rezoned with the concept plan approved back in March of 2021. And so the name of the PUD, we had some discussion on this, the name of the PUD is the Lewis Head Commercial Plaza, that's the name of it. That was approved by the county commission, so that's what they have to have on the plans. But the site plan itself is for 135 West Roberts Road. Proposed and allowable uses remain unchanged from the approved PUD. The proposed structure is a spec building that must comply with the PUD use table. They did note automotive services and repair when we discussed it, or when it went to the when the PUD was approved, and that was discussed during a pre-application meeting that we've had. I've also, I think there's a possibility as well, maybe a construction sales and services company might be located there. We talked to TDEC about that, and our concern is to make sure that they can accommodate enough employees to handle those uses. And it looks like it will. I've got a bit more detail on that here in a minute. The property owner is Mr. Lewis Head. Project representative is 615 Design Group. CJ Merle is here in attendance. Attorney represents this item. I don't think they're here this evening. Thomas Martin. Background, again, it was rezoned to PUD by the county commission in March of 2021. A site plan for the Dollar General building was approved in April 2021. The developer, Dollar General folks and others paid for a widening of West Roberts Road and did the construction in 2022 as per the traffic study. And there's been a lot of other applications, a couple that have been submitted since that, but nothing has changed since that original approval as far as the PUD itself. It's saying it's approved. And so the site plan application is submitted as a by right application, submitted pursuant to the original PUD approval. Existing conditions on site. You see the Dollar General there. You see this is the subject property here. There's another property over here that's also owned by Mr. Head, and then there's residential properties further down. This other parcel right here is approved for other commercial uses, retail commercial uses. There's an effort to utilize this for mini storage that was denied by the county commission a while back. So this is the current zoning, plan unit development. From the concept plan, just kind of reorient that there. This is the Dollar General building. Again, these are some other commercial uses down here on this other parcel. This is the parcel in question here. It is approved for 10,000 square foot building, and that's what they have proposed. The site plan that they've turned in here, I've got a little bit more detail there. You see the proposed structure. Of course, we talked about this. Parking requirements are all met for most likely uses, automotive sales and services, construction sales and services. There are other allowable uses as well. We do have to confirm zoning compliance before we can issue permits on any of those. They did provide a truck turning exhibit. This is the approved architecture from the concept plan. The county commission approved. This is what they've submitted. Color renderings, you can see that they do meet the intent of what was done there. Probably actually contain a little bit more brick. These are side elevations. Again, Roberts Road has been improved. It's been widened along the frontage. This particular track. Traffic impact analysis indicated that no additional improvements to State Route 109 are needed since northbound Highway 109 left turn decel lane is in place at this time. Traffic study was conducted in 2020. And we discussed it at some length last month. The factor was applied to all traffic counts along the lines of duty coded, and all traffic improvements that were required as part of the county's original approval have been completed at this time. So, our other slide there, when is the traffic study required? If you want to look at this in terms of, is this a new use that needs a new traffic study? Based on the traffic analysis that's been provided previously on this one. Auto Services Center is about the most intense proposed use would generate 42 peak hour trips per day, so not the 100 that would be required for a big traffic study. And the zone change, sorry.
42 Cook Road.
It came from right here, this trip generation analysis that was done when they did the PUD. They looked at the 10,000 per day automotive services center and how many peak hour trips. So that's your morning and afternoon peaks. 162 total daily trips, and this the number that came to was 40. About 40 people. Yeah, and so the numbers there are going to be pretty static across time because you're talking about whether that's done in 2,000 or today. Automotive service center is going to generate about the same amount of traffic no matter what. So that's taken from a manual that these guys use for these traffic studies. Like ITC land use code, or ITE, Institute of Traffic Engineers land use code. And then again, for the other two, there was a previously submitted zoning change that in 2020 that caused the traffic study to be done at that time, and staff doesn't have any additional traffic concerns, not just good traffic. So the subject property, as you're looking northbound, State Route 109 at West Roberts Road, West Roberts Road is back here, and then southbound, you see there's a very, very good sight distance for a good long way in both directions there. Subject property is back this way. That's the Dollar General. This is roughly the subject property. Graded drainage plan that they've submitted here, you see proposes 2 detention ponds, one in the front and one in the rear. They have provided the set of construction plans and drainage calculations as part of this application. County stormwater management resolution requirements are met. They do show significant reductions in off-site runoff pre versus post-development. And the calculations also show that the county's water quality requirements to be met. Detention basins are constructed in front and rear, and they have provided a draft stormwater maintenance and inspection agreement for our review. That will be finalized and recorded with registered deeds prior to the issuance of the building permit. So this is pond 1. And y'all saw this month, so sorry to rehash everything, but you see there are pre-development and post-development calculations. So you see for all storm events, there's pretty substantial reductions. So 25-year event, 10.65 pre-development, 5.75 post-development. And then detention pond 2, same thing, 40-ish% reductions in post-development flows. County zoning resolution does contain extensive requirements for landscaping and buffering for commercial PUDs. 25-foot type 2 landscape buffer is required by the county zoning resolution. It's been provided. I think they actually show a 35-foot buffer for the type 2 plantings. And parking requirements, landscaping requirements, parking areas as well. Parking requirements generally are addressed. Photometric lighting plans have been provided as well. I showed that on a separate slide, showing no off-site lighting impacts. So this is that landscape buffer. A little bit hard to see up there on that big screen, but they do show a 35-foot. See it a little bit right here actually, because see the width of that buffer is a little bit wider. Right? There's 35 feet. So this is the photometric lighting plan here. See where the lighting fixtures are and shows how they project and shine off site. So it's done in a way with these down-facing light fixtures, so it's not that a lot of off-site glare. Public water to be provided by White House Utilities. Again, they have given us that water utility or water availability letter. There's a hydrant in the northeast corner of the subject property. It is proposed to be placed on a septic system, and they have furnished a septic soils map, standby soil scientist, and a septic permit as well that I'll show you in a minute. I have a permit application on here, but they have provided a permit. This is that soils map, and this is the approved septic permit that was issued March 14th by Mr. Worship at TDEC. And this is just a separate page, a second page showing where it's showing where the field lines are approved to go. And we do have an email from Mr. Worship starts at 19 employees total. And so what that means is it can accommodate the employee necessary for those uses. No signage is proposed at this time. They will need to get a sign permit. They're going to mount signs on the building or on the ground in front of the facility. They will need to get some sign permit prior to building it. Comp plan, we've talked about this a lot on Highway 109. It did not envision the Highway 109 alignment at this location at all. And the comp plan was adopted before, was drafted through the group process before Highway 109 was opened at this location. However, it is logical at this location, and it's supported by the rezoning that was approved by the county commission a couple years ago. Y'all saw this slide earlier. 109 is not a controlled access roadway. This bud was designed to incorporate all county and TDOT standards related to access. And so this development derives its access onto a secondary road, which is Roberts Road, and directly cutting on the Highway 109. And so that's what you want to see on these kinds of things. And again, there is no policy or plan that says Highway 109 is off limits for development and that kind of thing. It just is supposed to be done in a certain way, and this development does it that way. And these are the standards. I forgot to put these in the presentation, but these are from our zoning code. This is our chapter 11, section 1106 is access management standards for State Route 109. These standards are met by this bud. You can see one of the standards it does call for the promotion of economic development in each school. Talk about that other one that we discussed. There's sidewalks. This is off topic, sorry. Generally, sidewalks are not required on Highway 109, so it's not a hard and fast. There are situations where you might want to see it. This is just from the comprehensive plan place type there, rural place type. Next steps, following approval by the site plan, approval of the site plan by the planning commission and stamping by the county engineer. That applicant schedule pre-construction meetings and once they get their state permits, which will be a notice of coverage from TDEC, there is no drive connection permit from TDEC. That's a drive, get a drive permit from the county on this one. And land service permit by the county. The applicant can obtain county permits and then start construction. We do want to work closely with the applicant to make sure that any proposed user that utilizes this facility is an approved use. We want to make sure that it is an authorized use that's off the table of allowed uses and parking requirements and that kind of thing can be done. And so we require zoning compliance certificate prior to getting us to go, just confirming who's going in there.
Josh?
Yes, sir.
Go back. Notice of coverage from TDEC. What does that mean?
So when you have a development that's going to disturb more than 1 acre, which this one will, you have to file what's called an NOI, notice of intent. And so that is a notice of intent to seek coverage under the Tennessee Construction General Permit, which is what regulates all construction in the state of Tennessee for stormwater is regulated by the Construction General Permit. And so you file a notice of intent. They review your application. That will include the stormwater pollution prevention plan, all these other things. Once they've approved it, they say, hey, you're covered under the Construction General Permit. Here's your NOC, your notice of coverage. And so that's the proof that we have that TDEC has approved their plans.
Okay, so it's not an insurance coverage or
No, this just means that they're covered under the permit. What they've submitted to TDEC complies with all the state and federal water quality standards.
Okay.
So that's ultimately TDEC's responsibility is ensuring that general permit is met. They delegate the day-to-day to us, but the issuance of the permit is TDEC's. We issue a land disturbance permit, which is like a belt and suspenders to the state permit. And we do the monthly minimum checks of the site to make sure that our stormwater requirements are met.
okay. Thanks.
Sure. So example motions there on the screen. One being to approve this site plan for a 10,000 square foot commercial building contingent upon, and I'll run through these. Construction plans must obtain the approval of the county engineer prior to issuance of county permits. The land disturbance permit must be obtained prior to initiation of grading activities. C, applicable state permit shall be obtained prior to issuance of land disturbance permit. That includes, it would have included septic permit, which they do have now, but that's the notice of coverage, that's the permit we're not talking about there. No building construction can commence until a building permit is obtained, and all applicable building code requirements shall be met. E, no permit shall be issued until a septic permit from TDEC is provided from the county. And what I'll do in just a second is I'll minimize that screen and I'll take that one out because they have actually gotten us that permit this time. F, user of the facility has to obtain a zoning compliance certificate from the county, and a signed permit is required as well. Example motion 2 would be to deny this. I will note that all the county requirements are pretty met. We picked over this one with a fine tooth comb as the planning commission, and we had no additional comments. 3 would be to defer this item for 1 month to obtain additional information if additional information is needed. The planning commission must act on it within 90 days per the zoning code. And that concludes my presentation. I apologize.
Thank you, Josh. Do we have any?
Yes, sir.
We do.
Mr. Eames.
Thank you. I'm Robert Eames from 141 West Roberts Road. I'm one of the very next residential lot, but I'm also the spokesperson for the neighborhood. 2 things. One, y'all judged on how much from Josh, if you don't mind going back to it, to the building, and how much parking space it was going to be, how many roll-up doors they'd have for this mechanical shop. Y'all said 4 or 5 cars plus the employees. There are 3 garage doors on it and 2 truck doors with 2 main entrances for a single building, if I saw it right. So where did y'all come up with all the parking spaces? How did you come up with 35? And why has it got truck docks when we talked about trucks going into that site once before?
Thank you, Mr. Eames. Maybe if the county doesn't draw these plans, I think it's questions for that.
Okay. Next of all, I want to thank everybody who's been listening to me the last year and a half and everything that's been going on. I understand there is nothing really we can do. The residents have asked me to, on the allowable uses table, if there was 2 of them that we could have rejected. And that being the alcohol service and cigarettes and cannabis being sold at this site. The rest of them are fine. Because it is conditional. Now, the one other thing that I wanted to say is, back when this was done in 2021, planning and zoning done this community a disservice. They didn't look at what the water situation was. And the water, everybody knows from the last year and a half, a lot of these people are in well water or spring water. Spring water is not affected as bad as the well water because it's being filtered more. This should have never passed in 2021 without that being looked at. That was because it was COVID time. No one had a chance to come up and say, hey, we need to let our voices be heard. Only people was ever notified was one that's straight across the street, 1 or 2 straight across the street from the dollar store, and Mr. Lewis Hill. No one else was ever contacted. No one knew anything about it. Most of the people don't read these newspapers anymore. Nothing was ever sent as far as to the community. Community don't know. Your system right now has it put in a newspaper. How many people read it? Do you get that newspaper? Do any of you get that newspaper?
I do.
You see what I'm saying? It's not out there. We're not letting the people know what's going on. Y'all probably didn't know that people were in well water or spring water down that hill. Y'all didn't know how much water ran off of this place and where that water went to. But like I said, thank you all. The berm idea, the landscaping idea, which I haven't heard really come a part of this meeting right now, but that was something we really appreciated hearing, that y'all was thinking about doing that. You know, a year and a half ago, Commissioner Josh, you met with me and was telling me all this. Y'all took me to his site just to listen to y'all talk about how good this was going to do our community. Y'all never considered what the community was, y'all were doing to the community. Y'all didn't care about the water. Y'all didn't care about where it was running off. So I brought it up over the last year and a half. Have y'all listened? Y'all tell me. Josh, you've been pushing for this ever since it went. Oh, there's nothing we can do but push for this, push for this, push for this. Are you in Lewis's head's pocket? Something's wrong here. But I think we need to get to the end of it. Thank you very much.
We can disregard that last statement and know for a fact that Mr. Sutton is very impartial, and he has not been pushing for anything. We've discussed this ad nauseum, and that's just not a true statement. So, okay. So, anybody else speaking to this project, Josh?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, we'll also state that the signage for the zone change was, I'm sure, on the property at the time that it was posted in the newspaper. So I'm certain that all the regulations were taken care of that are sent to the proper people within the radius. So we have discussed the water a lot. And so I just think that we've been very fair and open-minded about looking at this project. We've sent it back, we've denied everything. We're at the point where we're at what was approved prior to this commission being in place. So I just want to make that clear on the record. So since we have no other speakers, do we have any questions? Commissioner Miller.
I have a couple of questions. My first question is, Ms. Regan's raised a good point. Can we, as a planning commission, say, like, take away uses? Is that possible?
I think you can talk with Mr. Merle if they're willing to commit to not utilize those. I don't think there's any cannabis sales, anything like cannabis sales on that plan.
We did talk about liquor.
Tobacco. I think there probably are some allowable uses on there. Now, recall there is another little retail portion of this over on the highway there that was really more of a little strip development type thing, where that might be appropriate. And so that would be right to tell them that on this, if Mr. Morrell is willing to state on the record that that's not something they're willing to pursue or not going to pursue, wouldn't mind a condition for that. I don't think there'd be necessarily any harm for that, but I don't know that we could amend the PUD on the fly to take those out of the PUD at this time. I think they would have to go back to the county commission to amend the PUD as a major amendment and that kind of thing. So there might be a conversation to have with Mr. Merle if he wants to, if it's something that will discuss.
Is that something?
So it's my understanding to amend the PUD like that, we would have to go all the way back through the process and go all the way back to the county commission. All the conversations that we've had up to this point have led towards either automotive or construction sales and services. I've never once had a conversation with my client about it being cannabis or alcohol or anything like that. Our intent here is not to amend the PUD, but our intent is to fully adhere to the PUD, which we've shown doing that.
I'm not done. Sorry. I'm sorry. Well, that did relate to my question there. The other one, I guess, is more of a statement, and that would be Commissioner Klein addressed the issue of, we're still dealing with the sins of the previous commission. But that doesn't mean that I can say yes either. So I will not support this for multiple reasons. One is, I'm not going to leave anybody without drinking water that is safe. I'm not going to add to any more flooding for the neighbors. This person that put in this application is known for not following the rules, and he'll say what he needs to say. The truck docks concern me, even though they say they're going to be no trucks. I'm just one vote, but that's how I feel, and I would like to read an article I found that was done in January of this year, and this does, I know this is on West Roberts Road, but it does come off of 109, and it says, it was titled, "The Danger of Highway 109." Since 2019, the Tennessee Department of Safety and Homeland Security has documented 1,625 wrecks on State Route 109 from Ivory to the Sumner County line. It doesn't even come up any further. And it says 9 of those crashes involved a fatality and 38 serious injuries. That's a problem, guys. A major problem. And we're just sitting here just adding to it. That's all I got.
Mr. Belcher.
I heard what you said about amending the PUD. I think the question was, would you be willing to negate liquor sales, cannabis sales, make that statement and go on record as making that statement? I don't think that question was answered.
I can't make that statement right now because that is not a discussion that I've had with my client whatsoever. Like I said, the discussions that we've had about the intended uses for this property have all geared towards either automotive or construction sales and services. So I can't make that statement without having that discussion. And in my opinion, that's a use that's been in place since the PUD was approved. Like I said, all I can say is that it's not the intended use, but that also doesn't mean that if he sold the property that I don't know what the next person's going to do.
Yeah.
If I could add to the stormwater piece, the requirements of the county are for us to lower the flow rates, or at least match the flow rates that are coming off the property in the pre-existing state before the site's developed. We're cutting those flow rates in half because we understand that there are issues downstream, and we're trying to do everything we can to help that situation. So we're putting 2 detention ponds in and are cutting the flow rates leaving the site in half to do that, which is a significant change. Normally, you're only required to go either at or just below, and the measures we put on site are cutting them in half, which are shown in our plans.
This is a comment and a question. I brought this up in the last month's meeting, where the records retention is for 3 years. You have a PE inspection of the stormwater is required every 5 years. Those two do not mesh very well in my mind, and I don't know, Josh, if there's anything we can do here to amend that so that they do mesh.
Is that the stormwater management agreement that you're referring to? Is that what it is?
I believe.
I think it is. And that's something, there's some language in that there's a template that's in our stormwater resolution that we use for that. If there's an error on that, that's something that we can correct administratively. And so I don't think there's any reason that we can't make those numbers match. If it's 5 years, make it 5 years. That's not an issue. And so I don't see a reason that we can't correct that.
Would that need to be included in
I think
this?
we're gonna have to execute that agreement with them anyway, and so we go back and forth on the drafts as part of the process with the stormwater staff and them, and so we can make sure that agreement says that if there's some kind of scrivener's error or something like that in that document, that's something that we take care of. Yes, sir.
And lastly, there was some discussion last month concerning whether or not the owner would be willing to put in a berm. And I haven't heard anything with regard to that. I'd like to hear if that had been discussed and if anything had been decided.
So we did have a discussion with Mr. Morrell about that. As far as what was proposed, I said that up to him, and I think they countered with what, when I say what was proposed, would have been put forth by yourself, and I think they countered with the fact that their buffer exceeds the county's requirements at this time. They have a 25-foot buffer is required, 35, and they're showing 35-foot buffer with the required canyons. And so I think there were some constructability issues as well, perhaps with the possibility that they avoid their septic approval by putting a berm and cutting construction and put pile of dirt up on the septic area. And so I don't think there's anything in our regulations necessarily that could require or even allow the county to require that necessarily. Based on what's shown on plan of development, master plan, the concept plan that's been approved, and what's in our zoning code. I don't think there's necessarily that in there. And so I have to defer to Mr. Morrell on his thoughts on from his design perspective.
Now, I'll second what Josh just mentioned. We had a discussion about that. What he said is exactly what we discussed. And a few other things to add to this is there is another site in between the nearest, the adjacent site is in and of itself a 5-acre buffer between the next home that's been built. On top of that, as Josh mentioned, we're going above and beyond what is called for in the PUD. And from a vertical elevation standpoint, the site that is adjacent to this site that is to be constructed and the nearest home that's already built is a good 10 to 12 feet higher than where that home sits. So there's a pretty good change in elevation between the two sites. Outside of that, the only other thing that I can think of is that that this PUD was approved and the Dollar General at least was under construction and constructed prior to the nearest home down the street being built. I think the intent is for us to exceed what is shown in the PUD, and we're showing that we're doing that.
And what is the zoning of the adjacent property?
It is rural residential or
RP.
preservation.
RP.
Or so it's now rural preservation since the zoning change last year. I believe.
So if something, and I realize Mr. Head owns that, but should he sell that and someone build a home there, then that buffer, that portion of the buffer doesn't exist anymore.
Correct.
They're right next to the property.
Correct.
So from my standpoint, I heard what you said, and I agree that's the way it is now, but it has no bearing because that could change in the future. So,
But also to add to that, if say he does sell the property and someone does purchase it, they will have purchased it knowing what is next door.
true.
We're trying to do our best to meet the PUD or exceed the PUD as much as possible so that we can provide the best project possible at this location, considering the requirements of the PUD. So, outside of that, I don't know what else we could provide.
Go ahead, Brian.
Mr. Chair, without pulling up all the details, what's the size of those truck doors on that drawing? What's the size of those? I'll give them off the top of our head without having to pull out all the paper.
They are, I think they're 10 by 12, and those are bay doors. They are not docks.
Thank you.
Wait, are they not docks? I think I see
We're not,
brick underneath them.
no, sir, we're not showing any docks at this time.
Okay.
I think during the rezone, we were showing docks, but we pulled those off and just showed bay doors for the spec building.
There's trucks. So you said this is,
I mean, there are bay doors on the back that are 10 by 12 or 10 by 14.
so this is from the original concept plan here. So this is the, kind of the idea that was approved as part of the PUD. And they've refined the architectural elevations. This is what's actually proposed right here. So there's pull-up doors there.
10 by 12.
I believe it's either 10 by 12 or 10 by 14. And in the original PUD elevations, there were bay doors on the side of the building, and our proposed plan does not show any. It's my understanding, our proposed plan does not show any bay doors on the side.
I'm sorry, I'm seeing the green around the doors. Oh,
No,
okay.
No, that's just siding.
Wall on the side.
Okay, I was looking at the red underneath and saying they're not guys, they're not, okay.
So only bay doors that we show
It's rear.
on the plan is at the rear of the building.
Okay. I just looked up on my phone, the Dollar General sells tobacco and alcohol, so if we have concerns about that, the concern is already there. I don't think they sell the other thing, but if they could, they probably would. So, I fail to see how the burn would affect the septic system. Can you explain that to me?
So because of the way the site falls, so the high point of the site is on the, I guess once he gets to it, high point of the site is on the eastern side of the site and falls towards the western side.
So, well, I think your question, Mr. Chairman, I'm trying to reference
Yes.
is about septic soils. So this is the approved septic area. It's all the lot line, right? So this is the lot in question right here, the Dollar General program, right? And so this is the septic area that they're going to be using for this project. And so our along the property line, through the property line, or whatever, what affect drainage flows, and depending on where you're putting it, if you put it all the way up and down that property line, you're going to have to excavate and put pilot dirt on top of the septic area there, where your city approved soils, your good soils there on the line.
I'm just trying to bring the two sides together here. Would it be possible to do a partial burn? Not where the septic system is, and not maybe 6 feet, but 3 feet or 4 feet, or something like that?
I mean, it's something that can be asked for, but I don't know that there's regulatory language that would be calls for it necessarily. Yeah. And most particularly when it's not to repeat what Sergeant said, when we have a lot, an entire 5-acre buffer that's there already, owned by the same person.
Yeah, okay. All right, those are my questions.
Mr. Chairman, first of all, just go on record. Mr. Sutton has never shown anything but the highest integrity, in my opinion, and is honestly not important. So I want to get that on record. Second, I saw on there, septic was supposed to be inspected on the 12th. I assume that went well. Second, Josh, reviewed that permit requirement.
Yes, sir. It was inspected and they issued the second permit last Friday. Yes, sir.
Do we have any idea how many jobs approximately will be created by this business? That's something I know it's a big deal when one of these jobs is in the county.
To answer that question, at this point, no. However, whatever goes in there is going to have to adhere to whatever the septic permit allows. The septic permit allows up to 19 employees. So theoretically, if someone had 19 employees and wanted to use it, they could. I mean, if I had to guess, if this was like a contractor sales and services, like say a local electrician or a local HVAC company that was utilizing this facility to house their office and then also have back of house flex space to hold inventory units, things like that. I would guess it's going to be anywhere from 10 to 15.
And I do appreciate the reduction in stormwater. Love that area. We talked about hardscapes kind of causing problems and flood that already exists in the area. So that, I appreciate the effort done there. It sounds to me like all of the requirements and the best effort has been made by the company as well as the owner of the property. So I'm going to go ahead and make a recommendation for number 1, A through F.
We have a motion, do we have a second? We have a second from the street. Okay. We have a question from legal.
Yes, I just want to remind members that this is an administrative decision, not a legislative decision before you all vote. Just we should remember that. Thanks.
Before we vote, when we had talked about the Liberty Creek campus, we had talked in great detail about retention and detention ponds. Now, at the time, Josh, don't let me put words in your mouth. The civil engineer is responsible for the functionality of that retention pond forever. Is it? Till death, do we?
We'll have the engineer's name on a seal out there. But no, they are responsible for the design. And then it's got to be constructed to the design, and that's why we require as-built at the end of once everything is built and stabilized, we'll require as-built to release surety and that kind of thing. And so the engineer is on the hook for the design and the functionality of it. Now this is not a plat application. With the plat applications, we have the signature block for the engineer of record on there. That's what you were referring to there. But this is somewhere we have approved construction plans and we'll require as-built and all that. And if there ends up being some kind of a significant issue with the design, I think Mr. Belcher can back up on this. If there's design issues, the engineer does maintain some degree of liability. Things do have to be built to the design, though. That's usually where the argument is with the engineers and the construction companies to do what they design.
Well, and you understand what I'm getting at is we want to ensure that, like the Boy Scouts, it comes out better than it is right now, like number 1. And number 2, that no toxins end up in the water that goes to these wells. If we have issues like that, I don't want the county to get sued. I don't want the engineer to get sued. I don't want anybody to get sick. I mean, this is important stuff that we're crossing here. So.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
The other thing to add to that is part of the stormwater maintenance agreement that's required to be, signed and notarized and then also recorded is a long-term maintenance plan as well. And in that long-term maintenance plan, there is a narrative that provides means and methods as to how to maintain the property in a clean way. And then if there is debris in the pond, how to remove it, so on and so forth. And then on top of that, whenever the long-term maintenance plan and stormwater maintenance agreement is recorded, it runs in perpetuity with the property. So if it ever is sold, the next owner is aware of it and knows how to maintain the measures that are in place on site.
And who measures the toxins or the capacity of is that?
The capacity of the pond?
Yeah.
Well, the capacity of the pond is dictated by our design, which we've already shown. The pond is sized accordingly to cut the flow rates that are leaving in the site in half. What we're also required to do is meet the county's water quality requirements on the site, and so the method that we're utilizing to meet that is what's called a low flow orifice outlet structure detention design. And what it does is it allows the ponds are sized in a way to allow the water to build up, allow particles to settle, and then leave the site at a slower rate. Now, part of the reason why the flow rates are cut in half is because we are utilizing low flow orifice. But how it happens is it allows the pond to draw down at a slower rate, which allows particles to settle. The biggest problem with downstream waterways in our world today is sediment. Sediment is the number one problem for tributaries, creeks, rivers, lakes. And so that's why we have to go through the process with TDEC before construction to make sure that we're preventing sediment from leaving our site. And then even during construction and then post-construction as well. Biggest contaminator of downstream water is sediment, even above like chemicals and things like that, because there is development going on. But our biggest responsibility through the construction process is making sure that all that sediment stays on site when possible, to the greatest extent possible. And then if it doesn't, and the county goes out and notices that during construction we're releasing sediment off the site, then there are fines, there are slap of the hands, there are a number of, and then TDEC can also issue fines as well. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it does, but I'm thinking a little further down the road, 5, 10 years. I'm very sensitive to flooding right now. It's just kind of where I'm at with the county commission. And I see detention ponds overflowing often. And in fact, Mr. Sutton and I were talking about this just before the meeting. You cannot design a reservoir in every residential area because it's cost prohibitive, if nothing else. And so you can't plan for 48 hours of rainfall totals 20 inches. However, there are reasonable expectations, and I don't know that the design criteria today is accommodating that. I've been assured it is, but my lying eyes, tell me something different. And so that's my concern down the road.
We're required to design to the 100-year storm, which is a big storm.
That is a big storm.
And we're actually showing that we're, in a lot of municipalities, you don't necessarily have to detain the 100-year storm. You can release it safely through a spillway, but we're showing in ours that we're detaining it. So that means that we're technically designing above the 100-year storm. And then as far as capacity down the road, there is language in the stormwater maintenance agreement that states that if there's debris in the outlet structure, which would cause something to overrun, that the property owner is responsible to make sure that their facilities on site are functioning in a proper manner.
Okay. All right, we have, go ahead, Jim.
To your comment about the engineer side of this, most engineers have errors and omissions insurance. So if something goes awry, they have a policy that will cover it. However, and I've made this statement at prior meetings also, and you just touched on it, Mr. Chairman, was that if the data that has been approved for you to use in that design is not accurate and something goes awry, the engineer is not responsible because he used the information that was provided to him by the, whatever groups it is that's dictating here's what you need to use. If that data is incorrect, then something could happen down the line, and it's not the engineer's responsibility. There was bad data that was used in the design of, in this case, the detention pond and the stormwater management. So the other thing I wanted to ask was I wanted to ask our legal counsel if they would expound upon your comment
Basically, we have a set of standards that are in place. We're going to hear those standards, making this decision, and this is not any kind of change in standards or add to or subtract. We have standards that are adopted, and we have to live by them, regardless of whether they're
Go ahead, Ron.
Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to explain to the record that Mr. Sutton's integrity is advised beyond approach specifically with this project, as I've had multiple questions and concerns, and he has been able to walk me through. Sometimes we don't like things, but I just want to say for the record that his integrity is understanding. Thank you.
I want to remind before we vote that this project is by right. They have dotted every I, crossed every T. So when you vote yea or nay, just remember that this project has taken care of every possibility. Go ahead, Kathy.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Miller? No. Mr. Issa?
Yes.
Mr. Belcher?
Yes.
Mr. Straw?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Could we take a 5-minute break? Going to bring this meeting back into session. Thank you for your patience. We'll go ahead with item number 3, Josh.
Sir, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this final business item on the agenda is the Retreat Mobile Farm Phase 3B final plat. So this is 33 lots contained within, gets a little confusing sometimes on these things. Phase 4 has already been approved, the final plat's been approved. This is Phase 3B, which actually will complete the project. This will be the last phase of the Norman Farm development. This phase, sub-phase, contains 33 lots. It is zoned planning and development. It was approved as a low-density residential PUD under the zoning code that was in place back when this came through originally back in 2019. It is located in the Hendersonville urban growth boundary. White House Utilities provides water and sewer. The property owner, I've got it on there, Jones Company, that's an old slide. It's owned by Castle Rock is the company that owns it now. Project representative is CSDG, preliminary master development plan, which is basically rezoning. The rezoning on this property was conducted and approved back in 2019, June 2019 by the county commission at that time. They did get a preliminary plat and construction plans approved for phases 3 and 4 by the planning commission back in May of 2022. This sub-phase fully complies with the approved master development plan, the approved preliminary plat, and the approved construction plans, as far as staff has been able to determine. And the project is fully vested in accordance with the Tennessee Property Rights Act. And so this is one of those projects, we've got a few of them that got approved, and they have marched steadily along from the day they got approved pretty much. They've been pumping out lots and bringing plats in to get them approved. And so, as I mentioned, this final plat will wrap up this development for planning wise anyway. But construction will continue on lots and that kind of thing for a while. This is the subject property. This is a very old area which shows old lot lines, but it gives you an idea of what was on site back when it was first approved. There's a big water tower back here that we'll see some more of later on. This White House Utilities owns this partially. This is the phasing plan. So this is phase 3B back here. And again, phase 4 came before phase 3B, which you'll have that sometime. This is the preliminary plat for phases 3 and 4. Again, that's approved by the planning commission back a couple years ago, and they've been under construction and bringing in phases of it ever since. This is the final plat for phase 3B. You see these 33 lots along this end of the cul-de-sac right here. Just another sheet. There's 2 sheets to this one. One is to a smaller scale, so they can get all their notes and all that stuff on there. And then here's one at a larger scale. These are, I think the minimum lot size on this is about 9,000 square feet. And these lots are in that 9,000 to 12,000 square foot range. a little less than a quarter acre. We did provide them with a surety letter for any remaining items, public infrastructure, drainage, stormwater, overall maintenance, amenities, landscaping, erosion control, the top coat pavement. What our county engineer does is he looks at the development and he rounds up a general idea of what it would cost to totally finish out the development, amenities and all. Top coat asphalt, final stabilization, all that stuff. And we could get surety from them. So we've sent them a surety letter for $291,100. And so what that means is anything that remains is essentially covered in that. And if they walk away from the project, it gives the county can call that surety and we can go finish the project if we or something like to do so. So where this one is, they have achieved final installation of Van Condor Place. Is the road through here. Curb and gutter's been installed. Roads have all been constructed in accordance with the county standards. Our county engineer, county stormwater manager, Joe Phillips, he's our stormwater manager, Joe is, but he also does a whole lot of road inspections, helping marshal out for living group roads and all that stuff. And so these roads they get inspected through the process. So when the subgrades down, they check that, they check the stone when it goes down, and the binder code, which is what's down now. All that's roll tested and any failures are fixed and that kind of thing. So the county has inspected it through the process, so the roads, which you'll see in the pictures, are in good shape and are fully completed with the exception of the top coat, which goes in after the house is done. That we will require as-built to be submitted prior to the recording of the final plat. The surety will need to be posted for that $291,000 surety will be posted for the remainder of everything else that's still needs to be done. It's not much. So in addition to the required road and sidewalk improvements that they've done for this project, there's a widening of Jones Lane and a widening of Anderson Road. They also contributed, the overall number, I think was $1,150 per lot to the county that we're allowed to use for all site transportation improvements in the vicinity of the project. $1,150, they paid a portion of that for the entire project up front and then agreed to pay $900 per lot when each final plat is submitted. And so when they submitted this one, they were required to turn in a check for $27,900. So that was submitted and was deposited with the final plat a couple weeks ago. And I think in total, let's get the exact number, and I meant to look at it and see what all it was. It's about $230,000 total that the county has received that we have available for roadway improvements in the area that we might want to do. And so those can be used for any number of things. I've always advised against using it for like a repaving job or something like that. Instead, if there's something way to leverage money, if you need a signal or you need something somewhere in the area, you have to use it for that. Utilities and fire protection, again, White House Utilities is the utility provider on this one. All the water sewer lines are installed, all the fire hydrants are installed to exceed county requirements. We require basically 1,000-foot spacing in our subdivision regulations for these floods. We get 500-foot spacing. So what that means is no lot is less than 250 feet from that. And the fire protection will be provided by the relevant volunteer fire department. I believe that's New Chapel. I get a little confused on fire districts and that kind of thing. But I believe that's who it is. On-site drainage, curb and gutter has been installed. Stormwater detention facilities were shown on the preliminary plat construction plans for phases 3 and 4. Those ponds that are on site are being used as sediment basins at this time. Will require as-built for everything and all the infrastructure. Then that surety again need to be posted prior to the recording of the final plat. This is a steep development. This back part back here, they've had to take out a whole lot of hill over the last couple of years to put this development in. It's fairly level now, but it's still steep in places. And so lots that contain in excess of 15% are designated as critical lots. So 29 of these 33 lots are of critical lots, and so we do require an individual building plan on each one of those. And it's $750. I'm not sure the math is right there. I think there may be another page where I had 18 lots, but 750 times 29, that's basically the fees that we'll collect for critical lot plan reviews on this phase. These are pictures that Mr. Boyd went out and took last week, I believe. You see the water tower that I referred to off in the distance. You can see where they've taken out a lot of that hill there. We have made some regulatory changes as well that some of the lots probably contain some slopes that are in excess of I think 2 to 1 is what we have in our subdivision regulations. We changed the regulations back last year to require 2 to 1 slope. This development came through before that requirement was in place. So today, I think things will find this development might be a little different if it were to come through today. With regard to some of the slopes, the way that they've taken hills and that kind of stuff, and the slopes on the backs of the lots, significant drop-offs and that kind of thing. But it does comply with the construction plans and all the regulations that are in place when it was approved. More pictures. This is the end of the cul-de-sac there at the end of the development. So as you can see, the binder code is down, the top code is not down, that goes down later. But we had as a requirement in our subdivision regulations that to bring the final plat forward for planning commission approval. This is what we want to see right here. It's probably the strictest standard in Middle Tennessee, maybe in the state, just about. I know where I worked in Cargill, that's how we did it in West Tennessee. We call it substantial compliance, and so we require folks to do that. There's a lot of howls and indignation that make people do this, but I like to bring it to you guys when it's done. They can record the plat very soon after they start building houses. I've never been comfortable with bringing a lot of other jurisdictions. What they'll do is this right here would look like bare dirt, or maybe rock the way down, maybe. And in some places it would just be green grass. It would just be they wouldn't even started, and they bring it through and they would bond a hauling. They would issue a surety, so the county would be carrying millions of dollars in surety to put this road in for the developer if they can build it. And the developer could go ahead and start selling those lots. So there's a lot of liability. I won't go way off track on here, but I think it's important. And so what can happen is you have no road, you have no utilities, no infrastructure, but you have lots that are sold. And what that does is it convinces the local government to go ahead and build that road for the developer if they go down the other. So that's what happened back here in the Great Recession. You had a lot of developers go belly up, bonds couldn't be bought. You had people who would purchase lots. You wanted them to do the road. And so the cities had to go on the roads and for developers to do those kind of things. So the process that I'm comfortable with and that I kind of brought to Sumner County was you put the road in, you get it where it's good to go, look at like it does here, and then you can sell lots. But once everything's done, it's very expensive for the developer, but it makes it so that we carry a couple $100,000 for surety for asphalt for the surface and stabilize it, which can be easily done. And so there's not a lot of risk to the county in that regard. And so I'm pretty proud of that. I told Mr. Chairman, I told you one time that I sat through a training session one time with a surveyor in a training session, and he called out a particular county in Middle Tennessee that made it very difficult to get your final plat approved. And that was us. I was very happy that we made that. But this is important because these guys, as soon as they get the signatures on the plan, they can start pulling building permits. We don't have to keep up with it for 2 or 3 years while they get the road in and everything else. And if I need to withhold my signature or something like that, it doesn't put me in a position of holding the whole thing up for years at a time. And then badgering me to sign the plan. So the way we do it works pretty well. Mr. Belcher provided some slides. He went out and took some pictures as well, and I think he had some comments he wanted to make about some of the items he took pictures of. Mr. Chairman, without objection, I'll turn it over to him in a minute since I wrap this up. We have our findings of fact for Planning Commission bylaws 1, 2, 3, 4 here. The first is, complies with our plans and our zoning code and mixed intent zoning, which it does. Doesn't contravene the purposes for zoning and subdivision regulations. that fully complies with our regulation, which it does. Will not create adverse effects upon adjoining property owners. This particular one is, as you probably saw, way in the back, and so it's not something that necessarily borders up against neighbors. No one property owner or group of property owner would benefit to the detriment of the general public in this instance on one of those situations. And so just to kind of show what I'm talking about here. So if we look, pull back and look, this particular phase of the development is, this is all common open space. All of it, yeah. And so there's development to the north. Can't remember if it's right here exactly, but there's big time buffers you can see right here that follows this. And so this development was designed to ensure that all lots backed up to common open space. You don't have lots up against lots.
So is that highland or low?
This down here?
No, to the right.
This over here?
Yeah.
This is that water tower which rises
Okay.
up. Yeah, it rises up pretty high, yeah. Let's see, drainage. In fact, I did want to mention amenities. I think I had that in the conditions of approval. Next steps, prior to the plat recording, we'll need that letter of credit to be provided to us to include the stuff that remains. As built, to be provided prior to my signing of the plat. We have a general condition for a punch list, which just means we go out and look if we see any problems. I'll hold my signature on the plat to fix it. After all comments are addressed and everything's ready to go, I sign the plat, and they pick it up and report it to the Register of Deeds office. So I'm the last one to sign after White House Utilities and Engineer of Record and 911. All the other folks have to sign it. I do a final review to ensure that it makes all the extra funds. Once that's done, the plat's recorded, and that's when they can start selling lots and pulling up permits. So I have example motions here on the screen. Mr. Chairman, the first one is to find that all county requirements are met to approve the final plat for this phase contingent upon finalizing construction and stabilization of all items as may be noted prior to the signature. So that's my punch list. We often will have to go out and see straw, if there's bare ground and that kind of stuff prior to recording the plat to stabilize. They'll post the surety for $291,100. As built, provided as I mentioned, maintain any outstanding bonds or letters of credit, which this is time as the county provides authorization to release them. That's just a condition that's left over from back in Somerset down years ago. They pulled one over on us one time and got a letter of credit released ahead of time. And so we don't do that. And then E here, this one is one I did want to mention very briefly. All amenities contained in prior phases shall be completed prior to recording of this plat. Staff, ask you guys to put a condition of approval on staff for us to inspect the compliance prior to the final plat signature. So what that means is go back to the beginning of the whole development. There's if you've been out there, there's boardwalks and there's a big barn that they built that has their metal kiosks and all that stuff in there. There's a few other things that they have out to bid right now, amenities. There's a playground and some other things throughout the development. And so what we will do is we'll be making sure that this is the last phase of the development. It's very important for us to let it up tight, make sure everything's done and built. Not bid out, not gonna happen eventually, but it's done. And so probably a couple of months or a few months, we'll hold the plat and I won't sign it until all that's finished. And then once we feel like everything is done, I'll sign the plat. But since this is the final phase, you can go back to old developments back in the day, Allen Brook, various other developments in the county where there were all the amenities were in that phase 4, and they just didn't do phase 4 or it sold to somebody else, and nobody ever made them do it. Like Allen Brook is an example that was supposed to have a basketball court. It was supposed to have some of these other amenities that never got done. And so what we set up our process to try to make sure that at the end, when we get to the end of the development like this, there's a final roundup to make sure everything's done. If you don't do that, then we've got 33 lots we're not going to let you record and sell. And so that's a big incentive for them to go ahead and get all that finished. And so I just want to spend a little time on that. But those are the conditions. B would be to Approval without condition, the three deny it due to non-compliance. We have not noted any areas of non-compliance. And 4 be to defer it to allow applicant to provide additional information. And that concludes my presentation, Mr. Chairman. Like I said, I think Mr. Belcher had some questions and some comments he wanted to make about some of it.
Do we want to hear from the public first?
Yeah, is there anybody from the public that's speaking?
I think the project representative is here,
Okay.
but I don't think it's.
Does anybody have any questions for them?
Yeah.
You, maybe? Yes, okay, make it rattle.
So, as Josh mentioned, I went out there, and I'm curious, these lots shown are on the, if the drawing has north at the top, on the north side of this phase, what is being done about the runoff from this slope? Because right now, all of these, and this could change when the houses go in, but right now, the slope off of that cutout hill comes down and the slope continues to the road. And I'm curious as to what is going to be put in to prevent that runoff from coming down and flooding the homes that are going to be located there.
The lots there will be special unit and special product types, shallower, and the building team will grade in swales along the rears of the lots to ensure that drainage runs off of all the lots.
So that, just and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to put words or misrepresent what you just said. You're going to construct a swale at the base of this hill?
Yes,
and
sir.
then the front of the lot's going to slope back towards it, and you have the hill sloping down into it so that all the runoff will go to that swale and go off-site?
Yes, it looks like from the grading and on the grading plans that from the front setback forward, it drains towards the curb, and then anything from the front setback back will drain to that ditch, and then anything coming off that hill will also drain to the ditch. Yes, sir.
And is that going to have riprap in it or something to prevent erosion?
Not at this time.
Is that something that should be considered? I mean, you've got a pretty steep slope that's going to be catching.
So those are all critical lots, and so those would be ones that require, there would be an individual plan that has to be submitted by this, either their engineer or surveyor that shows exactly how they're going to build those. And that has to be, each one of those lots has to be, before it can get a building permit, has to have its own site plan approved by the county engineer.
Okay, and that's this, my concern will be considered during that review, then, I guess.
That's Marshall. Mr. Boyd, are you going to take that into account?
Well, I'm sorry, what was it?
Sorry to wake you.
No, that's fine.
The picture that was up there, you have a very steep
Yes,
cutoff of the
yeah.
embankment.
Right.
So my concern is the runoff coming down off of that hill to be contained and not to flood out the new homeowners
Right.
that are going to be moving in there.
Mm-hmm.
And whether or not, and this gentleman mentioned putting in a swale, but, no riprap or anything to control erosion from that, which, once again, I didn't take measurements, but, if we get rainfalls like we had this last weekend, there's going to be quite a bit of water coming off of that slope.
Right. That's something that we'll watch, that we'll monitor during construction as the houses are built, the lot swells are created. Right now there doesn't appear to be a problem at the bottom of the slope, but once those houses are built, it'll change, and so we'll just have to kind of keep an eye on it, just make sure.
And one thing to note too is that that backs up to common open space there. And so if we're experiencing drainage problems and that kind of stuff, the good thing about having common open space behind all these lots is that we ensure that we have the ability to, if things aren't working right, make them make the adjustments basically to correct it.
Yeah.
Well, if you go to the next slide, kind of Okay, this is the end of that cutoff in the hill, and now these lots, the back of them slope down to a creek, and a similar problem, and my concern not only is for the erosion of the hill from that, but also is the runoff from this area been taken into account for the creek for downstream properties?
Yes, yeah, they submitted drainage calculations for the whole, for the whole subdivision. They'd include that.
Okay, and that's also, you guys will review each of these. I assume these are critical lots also, Josh?
Almost all of them are. I think there's only 3, I think, or 4 in the whole phase.
29 of them are
Yeah,
critical.
and I believe all the water, I believe it all drains to the lake. Right? Yeah, if you've seen the lake.
Yeah,
it's
like at Norman Farm, yeah.
So it's a lot of water.
Okay, and then that overflows onto Anderson Road. I've seen that several times.
Well, what we don't want is Norman Lake to silt up.
Yeah, yeah, because that takes up volume that water can occupy. Let's see. And I'm curious, and once again, this is the final, forgive me for backtracking on some things, but I noticed there appeared to be a detention pond at the elbow in the road, but it's not shown on the drawing submitted, at least that I received for this. And I'm curious, and similarly, if you look at that, it's tough to see, but there's riprap at the back of that, and I'm assuming there's something there. Once again, I didn't have my boots with me. This is after the rain. This is all mud. I didn't walk back there to take a closer look, but yeah, it's in the back of that, kind of in the center of that picture. But I'm curious as to why the detention pond, what I am assuming is a detention pond, it wasn't noted on the drawings.
Probably a temporary setup on I was like this, and we have to get a permanent feature.
Okay, well, they had riprap around it, so I don't know.
So we would require permanent structures and that kind of thing to be on the final plan in general. But temporary separate lines and stuff like that, we do have quite a few of those that are kind of ephemeral, they're going to go away once everything's stabilized. And so that might be what it is, I don't know.
Yeah. We'll have to go ahead and look. It said it's at the bottom of the, right in that picture at the bottom of the slope.
Yeah, Josh, if you go back to the plat, I'll try and remember the areas. Okay, yeah, that one. Okay, the gap right there at the curve, there appeared to be a detention pond. And then as you come around the curve down to the right-hand side is where that other riprap was. And once again, maybe it's not a detention pond because, like I said, I did not walk back through the mud to see what was there.
I think it may have been there was a
creek
there. I think there was an outfall in that area.
Okay.
So I think there was a device installed at the outfall to help protect the downstream. That may have been what you saw. We'll confirm that, but
Right there on the construction plan, there's a creek there. There's probably some kind of protection or something.
yeah.
In the stormwater notes, note 4, and I'm confused by this statement, I'm hoping for some clarification, reads, property owners are responsible for the maintenance of the drainage ditches and the stormwater infrastructure. Is that pertaining to the new homeowners?
No, that ties into the agreement that they record, and so the HOA ultimately is the one responsible for the ditches, the ponds,
Yeah, well, that's what I'm used to, but I was, okay. Right. Welcome to your new home.
No.
Also, there's a detention pond that you need to keep cleaned out.
And that's one of our standard notes.
Yeah.
And so what that means is like, so that's, you're talking about our standard, the MS4.
Yes, the MS4. Yes.
So we have something there that says the property owners shall maintain drainage ditches and keep them free of construction or something like that.
Yeah.
So what that means is like if I go and buy a lot on Corinth Road, right, developer gets 5 lots done or something, they redo the ditch in front of it. Once the developer leaves, I purchase the property, it carries on to me as the next owner to maintain that ditch and not fill it in. Because that's the first thing some people for some reason won't do is go and do a bunch of, they will bring dirt and fill in the ditch in front of their house.
Yeah.
And then they got all the drainage problems and that kind of thing. And so we put that standard flat note on there basically just to say, if there's a ditch in front of your house, you got, the property owner is ultimately in charge of maintaining it. But in this instance, all your stormwater infrastructure and all that stuff is the responsibility of the HOA.
Okay. My last question was, correct me, Josh, when you were going through your presentation, did you mention that Anderson Road was widened or will be widened from this? Did I misunderstand you?
I think there was a project that was done on Anderson several years ago they put 2 additional feet or 3 additional feet, something like that.
It was part of the first phase of the development.
So it's already, so when I drive on that road and it doesn't appear widened to me, it actually was narrower.
Wait, compare that to the older part of Anderson. You'll kind of see the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there was I think both roads were, they were 2 or 3 feet inadequate. Now, Anderson Road is a city road, so they had to bond that with the city. They both assured you with the final plat, the first plat. And they went in and widened that out and did some ditch work. And we're still working with them on that pond. We're well aware of that concern that you have. It's always stopped at that location going back decades. It still does, but we're working with them with the developer on a solution. We do hold surety to help to continue to work with them on that. But they also widened Jones Lane as well. And again, there's been a continuing heavy trucks running in and out of that road, so there's been a lot of road failures. And we work with them. They've gone in and rebuilt that, I believe, at least once, maybe twice.
Twice.
Yeah, they rebuilt it twice. And they'll have to make sure that it's done completely by the time this is all done. If there's any issues on Jones Lane, then they'll have to fix those in front of the property.
Okay, because there's a culvert on that. Actually, I guess that's on Anderson still. That the road does a shimmy, and it's always getting messed up. Cars are always hitting the part of the culvert and everything. It's always so, but that's not adjacent to this development. So anyway, that's all I had.
All right, we have our example motions. Are there any other questions? Seeing no, I would entertain a motion. Anything?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion number 1, including the applicant echo.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. If there are no questions on the motion, Kathy, go ahead.
Yes,
Do
sir.
the roll call vote.
Commissioner Miller? Mr. Issa?
Yes.
Mr. Belcher?
Yes.
Mr. Straw?
Yes.
Okay, the project passes. Mr. Seth, you have.
Sir. Next item is administrative approvals. As y'all know, we put these in the packet just for everybody to have a chance to look at the stuff that we're working on behind the scenes. One and two lot developments, plat amendments, kind of thing. I've got a couple of questions. Mr. Straw had a question about one of them. I hope I answered your question up there in the front. If you had a question as well. If anybody ever has any questions about any of these, we'd be glad to look at them. Mr. Chairman, the next item on the agenda is the director's update. So as y'all know, we closed the survey. We're doing a comp plan survey. We posted that on Friday. We're so close to 4,000. I thought about leaving it open for a couple more days, but we didn't. So we made a commitment to close it on the 14th, and so that's what we did.
But that's about double what you were expecting.
Yeah. Well, that was optimistic. Internally, we were kind of like, maybe we get 500, that'd be okay, or 1,000 or something. And so we did real well. So almost 4,000. And so what our plan is, we got the data. There's a lot of data we're gonna round that up into tables and charts and graphs and stuff like that, and do a presentation with you guys sometime in the next month. My thought right now is to do a study session next month prior to, maybe a little bit more public advertisement on that, to let people know that we're going to be doing it. Those mass emails, like what I sent, if y'all seen those emails, I saw I sent out the survey. There's several hundred people on that email that I sent. So many hundreds of people. And so just to let people know. And so we'll review the data and talk about, but maybe I guess explore what is it? That's the question. It's a lot of y'all. I think you're going to be impressed. It's a lot of really good data, a lot of detail, and we're able to break it down pretty good. But then you got to decide what you do with it. What does it mean when you do it?
Would it be possible for us to get the data in advance of the meeting?
I would prefer not to. I would prefer. I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to say no, but what I'd like to do is to be able to have everybody see it fresh, and then consider y'all's impressions.
You just want us to come to the meeting.
You sneaky.
But that's not a hard no. We said hard no. We can't withhold information, but I think it's. I think you guys are going to be interested, right? So there's that. Then did want to very briefly talk about some state law changes. Right now, the state legislature is looking at some changes to the Vested Property Rights Act. Y'all heard us talk about that a little bit. Right now, you can vest upon the approval of a preliminary development plan. So a preliminary plan or whatever it might be, a site plan we're talking about tonight. What the legislature is proposing to change is to make it so that you vest upon submittal. So you're vesting, when you get approved, your vesting date is going to be backdated to the day you turned in. And so what that means is that you can't change essentially people are locked in on the day they turn, the day they submit, they're locked into those regulations throughout the process. So you can't change it on in the middle of the process. We're watching that. That is going to require some changes to our zoning code, certainly. And there's some requirements in the state law there that's going to require us to look at spelling out what substantial compliance means. And so basically, if you vest upon submittal, what does that mean? Does that mean here's what will happen? I'll be very honest, but here's what happens. We'll have people submittal deadlines at 3 o'clock on Wednesday. We'll have people flying through the door at the last minute with a sheet of paper that says, preliminary plan. I got it turned in. You can't deny me. I got it turned in. And so what the legislature is envisioning is that the local governments are going to create a standalone resolution or something in the zoning code that says, all right, on submittal, to be accepted and be vested, you have to turn in basically a substantially complete application that is in substantial compliance with the regulations at that time, which is how we do it. We reject applications that is incomplete all the time. But you got to spell it out. So we're going to have to think about what that means. I've got to figure out what other places are going to be doing and how they're going to handle this. But we'll have to change the zoning code some to spell out exactly what that substantial compliance means. That way, when somebody comes in and they don't turn in an application that meets our requirements, we can say, that's no good. We're rejecting that. And we already got rules to that thing. We got to have something special for this. And so, or we say, okay, we've checked it. You've checked all the boxes, and here's your application is in substantial compliance with what we require to be submitted. And so that's when you're vested. So we'll have to have probably a new process to give people something in writing saying your application is accepted and all that. So probably something that would be immensely helpful on that would standardize and apply. We talked about it a few years ago, is an online permitting portal. And so online permitting, when somebody drops something that turns it in, it's timestamped. You know exactly what they turned in, when they turned it in. You can look at it on the portal and you can see what you got. And you can give them a determination there. You can hit the reject button essentially if they're missing things, or you can hit the accept button. It's not a situation where you've got a bully standing up in front of the ladies at the front desk yelling at them for not taking an application. not to say we have abilities in the development community. But people to get their way will try to strong arm the staff. And so having an online portal, like we talked about a few years ago, it's expensive. We're one of the only places in Middle Tennessee that doesn't do it at this point. Macon County does it now. And so we're all favor still, but having that portal, I think, and that's a discussion maybe for the budget committee and that kind of thing, but at some point we'll need to look at that. I think that will help us to comply with this new state law. So there's that. We talked about other updates to the zoning code and that kind of stuff. We talked about shipping containers and maybe short-term rentals, shipping containers, those kind of things. Various things we've been talking about. My plan right now is to kind of keep working on some of that stuff behind the scenes, wait for the legislature to come out of session, see what bills pass, because there's probably several bills that are going to require amendments to the zoning code. Do a big roundup. It might be multiple resolutions for y'all to look at. So shipping containers is one, vested rights is another, but it'll all be in one big document, basically. Rather than coming at you guys every month with different changes and that kind of thing, that gets harder to coordinate because each one has to be advertised. And so sometime probably this summer, we'll be looking at bringing a lot of zoning changes to you guys. And for positive, negative recommendations, vote them up or down, whatever. Some of them are not going to be discretionary, I don't think, like the stuff that the state legislature might change. Probably shouldn't change our zoning code yet.
Well, simultaneously, we'll be doing the 2050 plan.
That's right. So a lot of heavy stuff.
A lot of heavy stuff.
A lot of heavy stuff. But that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Issa, second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. Thank you, guys. Great meeting.